She was a restless adventurer who smuggled herself across forbidden borders. She was also the keeper of a royal treasure trove so vast it could rival a crown's. This is Princess Alice, a duchess destined for a life in the shadows. Yet her jewelry box, filled with magnificent tiaras and priceless gems, tells a different story. A story defined by the staggering generosity of one woman, the formidable Queen Mary. So, why did the most calculating collector in royal history lavish the wife of her third son with jewels worthy of a queen? And which one of these treasured gifts, a deeply sentimental piece, was the only one that couldn't be saved? Today, we explore this magnificent collection to understand the story behind one of the great, unexpected royal treasure houses. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. Before we dive into the incredible sparkle of diamonds and emeralds, I think it's so important to understand the woman who wore them, because the story of Princess Alice, Duchess of Gloucester, is a true treasure in its own right. She lived to be 102, becoming the longest living member of the royal family in history. And for nearly 70 of those years, she was a quiet yet absolutely integral part of the House of Windsor. We're used to seeing her in photographs, always composed, always with a gentle smile, always slightly in the background. But behind that calm facade was a life packed with adventure, one that broke the regal mold in many ways. To understand her dedication to duty, we have to go back to her youth. When Alice was just 14, she nearly drowned in a strong current. She later recalled how, in that moment, she prayed for rescue, vowing that if she survived, she would devote her life to public service, and she kept that promise. But the path to fulfilling it was quite unconventional. Born Lady Alice Montagu Douglas Scott, the daughter of one of Scotland's most noble dukes, she was openly bored by society events. She once described her debutante ball as miserable. Her spirit yearned for something different, and she found it in travel. She went to Kenya, where she honed her skills as a painter, selling her work to finance more journeys. On another trip, while visiting India, she dressed in traditional Afghan clothing and smuggled herself across the border just to experience life among its people. One can only wonder where else her travels might have taken her, had her father's illness not called her back to England in 1935. It was then that she renewed her acquaintance with an old family friend, Prince Henry. The third son of King George V, he was terribly shy, but their friendship soon blossomed into love. She married at 33, which was considered quite late at the time, and even here, her individuality shone through. Deciding she was past the age for a white gown, she chose a wedding dress of a delicate blush pink, designed by a then little-known couturier, Norman Hartnell. It was this marriage that finally gave her the opportunity to honor that very secret pledge she had made as a girl. She stepped into a new life of duty, one that would take on a far greater scale following the abdication of King Edward VIII. And it was this new life that became the canvas upon which one of the most remarkable and perhaps one of the most personal royal jewelry collections of the 20th century was created. A collection that began with love, duty, and friendship. Their wedding, though moved from Westminster Abbey to the private chapel at Buckingham Palace out of respect for her father's recent passing, was still a profoundly royal occasion, and the gifts she received laid the foundation for what would become her legendary collection. They came from 3 distinct sources, and each tells its own part of the story. Let's begin with the most significant source, the gifts from her new parents-in-law, King George V and Queen Mary. When you think of Queen Mary and jewels, you think of a formidable, almost academic collector. Her gifts were never just pretty objects. They were statements of history, dynasty, and intent. And the first piece we must talk about is the honeysuckle tiara. This was, without a doubt, the headline piece of her wedding gifts, and it has a fascinating history that began long before Alice. Queen Mary had commissioned it for herself around 1914 from the jewelers E. Wolfe and Company. Being Queen Mary, she was famously practical, having it made using diamonds reclaimed from two of her other wedding tiaras, which she had decided to dismantle. The central element was designed to be interchangeable from the very beginning. During her own time wearing it, Queen Mary was photographed with several spectacular options in the center. She used the legendary Cullinan 5 diamond, that magnificent heart-shaped stone, and also a large sapphire and diamond brooch. But for Alice's wedding gift, Queen Mary did something very specific. She commissioned an entirely new central element, a beautiful, all-diamond honeysuckle motif designed to perfectly match the rest of the tiara. She then gave the tiara with this new diamond center to Alice, while keeping the Cullinan 5 and the sapphire option for her own collection. So Alice received a complete, self-contained, and absolutely stunning diamond tiara. But the frame itself still held that potential for transformation, a detail that would become very important later in our story. We will certainly be returning to this tiara, as its story was far from over. The second major gift from her parents-in-law was deeply personal. Queen Mary also gave Alice the Teck turquoise tiara and its accompanying parure. This set has such a wonderful, sentimental history. The tiara itself, made around 1850, had belonged to Mary's own mother, Princess Mary Adelaide, the Duchess of Teck, and was part of the set given to Mary for her own wedding back in 1893. It's a beautiful, almost romantic design, very much of its time, with vibrant turquoise stones and diamonds set in a central sunburst motif surrounded by delicate Rococo scrolls. Over the years, Mary had it slightly altered herself, removing the very top central point to give it a more modern, Kokoschnik-like silhouette. Along with the tiara, the gift to Alice included a necklace, several brooches, and earrings, forming a complete suite of jewels. The generosity of King George and Queen Mary didn't stop with those two magnificent tiaras. The next gift was a suite of jewels so rich in color and history, it could have been a headline piece in its own right, the Gloucester Pearl and Emerald Suite. This gift was another masterclass in Queen Mary's ability to repurpose historic jewels to create something new and wearable for the next generation. The pearls and emeralds were originally part of a spectacular 7-row Indian necklace that had been given to the future Queen Alexandra as a wedding gift by her mother-in-law, Queen Victoria, back in 1863. After Alexandra's death, the necklace was inherited by her son, King George V, and Queen Mary, who saw its potential. The original piece was perhaps a bit too overwhelming for modern tastes, so Mary, with her characteristic practicality, had it carefully dismantled. For Alice's wedding, a magnificent suite was formed from these very stones. It consisted of 2 beautiful necklaces of alternating pearls and cabochon emeralds, a large stomacher brooch with 3 emerald pendants, and a pair of bracelets. Alice was not just receiving a beautiful set of jewels. This was a direct link to the history of the House of Windsor, a tangible piece of dynastic heritage, thoughtfully reimagined and passed into her care. Alongside these colored gems, Alice also received a magnificent piece of pure diamond splendor, Princess Helena's diamond corsage brooch. This was another historic jewel from the main royal collection, its story beginning with Queen Victoria's 3rd daughter, Princess Helena. It was likely one of her wedding gifts from 1866, and it's a spectacular example of mid-Victorian design. For Alice, it became one of the most hard-working and versatile jewels in her collection, especially in the early decades of her marriage. Its sheer size and brilliance made it the perfect adornment for the grandest of state occasions. She chose it for the coronation of King George VI in 1937, where she pinned it to her gown, pairing it with her new honeysuckle tiara. While the gifts from the king and queen were steeped in dynastic history, the jewels from her new husband, Prince Henry, tell a more personal story. They were a reflection of contemporary style and of a man's affection for his bride. The first was a magnificent and fashionable wedding gift, the Gloucester Diamond Bandeau. This piece was pure Art Deco, the height of 1930s glamour. It featured a sleek, geometric platinum frame set with brilliant diamonds, but its true brilliance, much like the honeysuckle tiara, lay in its clever versatility, a feature Alice clearly appreciated. The bandeau was designed as a convertible piece. Its central diamond element could be removed and worn separately as a clip brooch. In fact, the two diamond sections on either side of the centerpiece could also be detached and worn as a pair of clips. This was incredibly chic and practical. But there was another layer to it. Prince Henry also gifted her a stunning Art Deco emerald and diamond brooch, which could be swapped into the bandeau's frame in place of the all-diamond centerpiece. This instantly transformed the tiara, giving it a vibrant splash of color. To make the set even more complete and versatile, Henry's siblings, including the future King George VI and the Duke of Kent, jointly gave Alice a second matching set of diamond and emerald clips. This meant she could wear the bandeau in multiple configurations, all diamond or with a partial or full suite of emeralds. It was an incredibly thoughtful and sophisticated gift, perfectly suited to a modern woman of the 1930s. It gave her options, allowing her to tailor her jewels to her gown or the formality of the occasion. In the early years of her marriage, Alice was often seen wearing the bandeau, particularly for less formal galas and dinners, showcasing its elegant and contemporary style. But the bandeau wasn't the only tiara Prince Henry gave his bride. He also presented her with a second diamond tiara. Princess Alice was indeed seen wearing this lovely tiara on a few occasions in the years immediately following her wedding. However, after these initial appearances in the late 1930s, the tiara seems to have vanished from public view. Its fate has become one of the quiet mysteries of the Gloucester collection, and we will explore a very plausible theory about its transformation a little later in our story. From a jewel with a mysterious ending, we now turn to one whose beginning was just as spectacular, and perhaps the most sentimental gift he gave her, the diamond knot brooch. This was an absolutely breathtaking jewel. It wasn't a modern piece like the bandeau, it was a magnificent antique dating back to around 1860. The design is a beautifully crafted, intricate lover's knot, a popular romantic symbol in the Victorian era, realized entirely in diamonds. The craftsmanship of this brooch was extraordinary. The intricate ribbon of the knot was created from a cascade of shimmering diamonds, all set in silver-topped gold to achieve the maximum sparkle. The very heart of the knot was a large cushion-shaped diamond of about 5 carats, and from the bottom, a fringe of 6 stunning pear-shaped diamonds hung freely, designed to swing and scintillate with her every movement. It was a true masterpiece of 19th century artistry. This brooch immediately became a favorite of the new Duchess. It was a grand piece, substantial enough for the most formal events, and she wore it often. We see it in numerous official portraits, including those by the famed photographer Dorothy Wilding in the late 1930s. It was clearly a piece she cherished deeply, not just for its incredible beauty, but for the sentimental value it held as a personal gift from her husband. As we'll see later in her story, the fate of this particular brooch makes its initial significance all the more poignant. And so, her foundational collection was built upon magnificent gifts from the king and queen and spectacular romantic gifts from her new husband. But this picture was completed by a third, equally important source, her own family. Completing this trio of wedding gifts was a magnificent pair of diamond earrings from her mother, the Duchess of Buccleuch. These are spectacular antique diamond cluster earrings, a grand and classic design. Interestingly, in the early years of her marriage, Alice wasn't often photographed wearing these particular earrings, but their time would come. By the 1950s, they had become one of her most important and frequently worn pairs, chosen for the grandest of occasions. She wore them for the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953, and they became a go-to pairing with her great tiaras for state banquets and formal portraits. As we'll see, they have remained one of the most hard-working and essential jewels in the Gloucester collection to this day. So, with these remarkable gifts, Princess Alice began her married life with a jewelry collection of truly unparalleled splendor. The combination was perfect. She had the historic weight required for her new royal status and the personal pieces that spoke of love and family. But this was not the end of the story. It was, in fact, just the beginning. The jewels she received in 1935 were a promise of the life to come. Ahead of her lay decades of unwavering service, unforeseen global challenges, and the forging of a deep, personal friendship that would prove to be more valuable than any diamond. It was through this life of duty and quiet dedication that her collection would evolve from merely impressive into something truly legendary, with the addition of treasures that tell the most fascinating part of her story. And Alice's life of service began almost immediately, tested by one of the greatest crises the modern monarchy has ever faced. Just a year after her wedding, the abdication of King Edward VIII shook the institution to its core. Suddenly, her brother-in-law, the shy and unprepared Duke of York, was thrust onto the throne as King George VI. In this moment of profound instability, Prince Henry and Princess Alice stepped into the breach. They immediately took on more duties and a heavier schedule of engagements to support the new king and queen. Alice became a steadfast, reliable presence, a crucial part of the small, core team of royals working to restore public confidence and stability. One can only imagine how Queen Mary, the steadfast matriarch who valued duty and tradition above all else, would have valued this unwavering loyalty. In her new daughter-in-law, she surely saw the qualities she most admired: resilience, discretion, and an unshakable commitment to service. Alice was not a source of drama or difficulty. She was part of the solution. So, when Queen Mary passed away nearly 2 decades later in 1953, the bequests made to the Gloucester family felt like the final, definitive acknowledgement of that long-proven loyalty. And perhaps no single piece illustrates this more perfectly than the Iva tiara. This tiara had been one of Queen Mary's own original wedding gifts from 1893, presented to her by the Earl and Countess of Iva. It's a beautiful, Kokoshnik-style tiara, featuring an intricate and tightly packed design of diamond scrolls and foliage. What makes this inheritance so incredibly significant is that the Iva tiara was one of the few pieces Queen Mary wore consistently throughout her entire life, without making any radical changes to it. She was photographed in it in the early 1900s as a young Princess of Wales, and again at a gala performance as late as 1946, well into her years as Queen Dowager. For this specific cherished tiara to be passed to her son and daughter-in-law was the ultimate gesture of trust. It signified that Alice was seen as a worthy successor, a safe pair of hands to carry on its legacy. And Alice did just that. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, she began to wear the Iva tiara for state occasions, including state visits and banquets. It became a key piece in her own formal rotation, a beautiful and visible link between her and the Queen who had so clearly valued her steadfastness. Along with the Iva tiara, the Gloucester collection was enriched with several other magnificent pieces from Queen Mary's personal jewel vault. One of the most opulent was Queen Mary's 11-row pearl choker. This was a truly spectacular piece, very much in the grand Edwardian style. It consists of 11 rows of small, beautifully matched pearls, held together by 2 large and elaborate diamond floral elements. It's thought to be one of Queen Mary's extensive wedding gifts from 1893, and she was photographed wearing it often in her younger years as Princess of Wales. It created a wide, dramatic band of pearls around the neck, a style that was the height of fashion at the time. After World War I, however, Queen Mary's taste shifted towards massive, all-diamond necklaces, and the 11-row pearl choker was seen less frequently, eventually being put away. For this significant historical piece to be brought out of the vaults and passed to Alice meant it was being given a new life. Alice wore it sparingly but to great effect in the 1950s and 60s, often pairing it with the newly acquired Iva tiara for the most formal of occasions, once again demonstrating her role as the keeper of these historic treasures. The inheritance also included several magnificent colored gemstone pieces. The first was the festoon emerald necklace. This is a spectacular Belle Epoque creation, featuring large, square-cut emeralds set within delicate, looping swags and festoons of diamonds. Its exact provenance is unknown, but it is widely believed to have been another of Queen Mary's jewels. Alice began wearing this magnificent emerald necklace soon after Queen Mary's death. Notably for state visits in the mid-1950s, it gave her a truly regal, high-impact option for evening wear. Next, a suite of pink topaz jewels from Queen Mary's collection came to Alice, and it was her own creativity that brought them to life in a new way. Among them was a rectangular pink topaz and diamond pin. Alice took this historic brooch and had it beautifully repurposed, setting it within delicate strings of collet-set diamonds to create an entirely new and striking necklace. This bespoke necklace proved to be the perfect companion piece for a major transformation in her tiara collection. Remember the magnificent honeysuckle tiara, given to her as a wedding gift with its all-diamond center and its clever, interchangeable design? As part of the 1953 inheritance, Alice also received the spectacular pink topaz centerpiece that Queen Mary herself had once worn in that very tiara. Now, all these years later, Alice finally had both the frame and this stunning colored gemstone. She could wear the tiara in a completely new and dramatic fashion, and her personally designed topaz necklace was the perfect complement. The wedding gift from 1935 was now complete. And the tiara's evolution didn't stop there. At some point, an emerald centerpiece was also created for the honeysuckle tiara. While the exact timing and origin of this addition are unclear, it gave the tiara a third magnificent look. These three distinct configurations, the original all-diamond, the vibrant pink topaz, and the rich green emerald, are all still used to this day, making it one of the most versatile and important tiaras in the entire Gloucester collection. Finally, to round out her already impressive array of turquoise, the inheritance also included Queen Mary's turquoise fringe necklace. Having already received the main tech turquoise tiara and parure for her wedding, this delicate fringe of turquoise and pearls served as a further beautiful supplement to the suite. And the inheritance wasn't just limited to grand necklaces and tiaras. It also included a selection of Queen Mary's personal brooches, the kind of useful, elegant jewels that form the backbone of a royal lady's wardrobe. A perfect example of this is a beautiful pearl and diamond bar brooch that became a quiet favorite of Princess Alice. Queen Mary herself wore this brooch frequently, often pinning it to her corsage. It was a classic, versatile jewel in her collection. After Queen Mary's death, this brooch passed to Alice, who clearly appreciated its timeless elegance. She wore it often throughout her life, just as her mother-in-law had. And today, the brooch continues its journey through the generations, as it is now worn by the current Duchess of Gloucester Birgit. With these final bequests, Alice's collection had reached its zenith, possessing a depth and breadth worthy of any major royal house. With her collection now fully established, we can truly see how Princess Alice used these magnificent jewels over her long life of service. Her choices weren't just about glamour. They were about suitability, personal style, and often a deep sense of duty. A perfect example of this is the Royal Hussar's brooch. Her collection wasn't just made up of tiaras inherited from queens. This piece speaks to her own unique royal role. It was a diamond brooch commissioned specifically for her and presented in 1969 to mark the amalgamation of the 10th and 11th Hussars. As Colonel-in-Chief of the new regiment, a position she held with immense pride, this brooch became a powerful symbol of her personal commitment and her deep family connection to the military. She wore it for regimental occasions, and it was a jewel that represented her service, not just her status by marriage. Now remember that other diamond tiara Prince Henry gave her for their wedding? It's believed that the tiara wasn't simply put away. Its diamonds were repurposed to create this piece, the diamond necklace tiara. This versatile jewel features a line of brilliant collet-set diamonds, each enclosed in a delicate open-work frame. It could be worn as both a tiara and a necklace. Princess Alice herself was seen wearing it exclusively as a tiara on numerous occasions. It served as a lighter, more understated option compared to her grander pieces, and she was never photographed wearing it as a necklace. It was her daughter-in-law, Birgit, the current Duchess, who would later demonstrate the piece's full versatility. While Birgitta has worn it as a tiara, she more frequently chooses to wear it as the magnificent diamond necklace. Her jewelry box also contained other distinctive pieces that reflected the fashions of the day. A wonderful example is a pair of vibrant Art Deco clip brooches, featuring diamonds and striking rubies. While their exact provenance is unknown, they were a sharp, stylish addition to her collection, very much of their time. She was photographed wearing them as early as 1936. One of her most cherished pieces was a lovely and delicate floral brooch in the shape of what appears to be a narcissus. She wore it consistently throughout her long life. Her personal collection was rounded out by a variety of other elegant pieces that formed the backbone of her daily and evening wear. We see her in beautiful multi-strand pearl necklaces, sometimes a grand 5-row choker, other times a classic 3-strand necklace. Her earrings often featured pearls, from simple studs to more elaborate floral designs with pearl centers. While the specific histories of these pieces are not well documented, they were the essential elements of her style, proving that her collection was not just for state banquets, but was a living, working wardrobe of a dedicated and consistently elegant royal duchess. So, as we've seen, Princess Alice assembled and curated a truly breathtaking collection of jewels over her lifetime. And what is remarkable is that the Gloucester family has managed to carefully preserve almost all of it. The magnificent tiaras, the historic necklaces, the personal brooches, they all continue to be worn and cherished today. However, there is one significant piece from her early collection that did not survive to the present day within the family. One jewel never worn by the current Duchess Birgitta. That is the spectacular diamond knot brooch, the personal wedding gift from her husband, Prince Henry. At some point after the mid-1980s, for reasons that are not publicly known, but may have been connected to financial pressures of the time, this deeply sentimental brooch was quietly sold. The sale only became public knowledge much later, in 2012, when the historic jewel appeared for sale at a Sotheby's auction, presented by a subsequent owner. It's a poignant footnote in the history of this otherwise intact and magnificent collection. And so, the story of Princess Alice and her magnificent collection comes full circle. From the adventurous young woman who explored the world on her own terms, to the steadfast Duchess who became a pillar of the monarchy, her life was as rich and multifaceted as the jewels she wore. It's a beautiful reminder that behind every great jewel, there is an even greater human story. What do you think is the most beautiful piece in the Gloucester collection? And does learning about Princess Alice's quiet strength and adventurous spirit change the way you see these magnificent jewels? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed uncovering the stories behind the sparkle, I would be so grateful if you would consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the world of royal jewels. I look forward to seeing you again soon.